Welcome to the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer, Jeff Lerg. I'm a mental performance coach for hockey players. I help people figure out what they want, get past doubt, fear, worry. Jeff Lerg, national champion, collegiate athlete, unbelievable goalie, pro hockey player, now completely immersed in hockey, giving back as part of Goalie Mentors. His whole thing is to help people figure out where they want to go within the very technical world of a goalie. Our entire thing in this podcast, though, is trying to create a situation where every single pain point that gets in the way, everything that holds you back, we try to give you answers every single week. And today, we're going to talk about facing reality. Facing reality is tough. Even what reality is kind of hard to define. But we all know what it's like when you're a parent trying to help your kid and you see your kid getting frustrated and not getting what they want. Either things aren't going as fast as they wanted, or they didn't make a team. Or if you're on a team, I don't care what level you're at, you can be in the AHL thinking you need a shot. At the NHL, you get called up, you have a crappy couple of games, and you figure your life's over. You never know. Our job today is to talk about this thing of reality and trying to find a way, what can we do to manage reality to help you go after your big dreams? Jeff, do you want to start off and tell us anything you think at all that might be useful?
One of the biggest pieces we want to discuss today in facing reality is the quicker that you identify your reality, the easier it will be to navigate your path to your true success. So what that means is, first, as an athlete, you have to do a deep dive in to yourself and really establish, do I love being a hockey player, or do I just love the life that comes from being a hockey player? And I've had many friends throughout the course of many years of playing that loved the life of being a hockey player, but didn't necessarily love all the work that it took to be a hockey player. And those are two different avenues. Many people love the team wear and the notoriety, and when you win a championship, you want to post it all over your social media and let everyone know how great things were. But a lot of people don't want to identify how hard the reality is of all the hard work and sacrifice and time and commitment it takes to be a successful athlete. And there comes this time in everyone's life as an athlete, because everyone's going to be done playing at one point or another, where you have to face your own reality. Do I want to keep grinding through to find a way to the next level? Or have I just had enough and this is too hard, I want to move my life in another direction?
I mean, it makes so much sense. I don't know how many guys, I can tell you, even this past year, guys who are so frustrated because they're not getting the playing time they want to have. And it makes sense. Every time you go up, you're the guy at the bottom again. You got to work through it. What happens is, if you think the reality is, I suck, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I'm a piece of crap, I'm a loser, I'm letting my coach down, letting my team down, which is the amalgamation of everything I ever hear all the time from people at every single level, it's a killer. It holds you back because you're not facing the reality of the fact that this is paying your dues. This is busting your ass to get what you want. And as soon as you realize that, and realize that all you ever have is this grinding through to try to develop, as soon as you face that, then that becomes a reality that's productive. You thinking the reality of, hey, I'm not getting playing time, it's not happening quick enough, I suck. Hey, it's great to have aspirations to want to be great. It's great to want to dive in and become some amazing guy who's contributing immediately. But it doesn't matter where you are going to hold yourself back if you start kicking your ass with a reality that's not true. You don't suck and you're not awful. You're paying your dues to get where you want to go.
I know for me, from my personal experience, I think many athletes start to get to that point in the teenage years when you're kind of growing up, you've been around the game long enough, you start to see others maybe get some notoriety at the next level of hockey, whether it's juniors, college, some other teammates or opponents could be getting commitments. And it might be the first time that you've been passed over. Maybe you've always been a successful player, and it's the first time that you're starting to see kind of a pecking order of, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought or as highly touted as I thought. And I know for me, we've talked a lot about learning from past failures. Not that it's a failure, but I was in a position as a teenager where I was probably successful enough on the ice to be invited to that NTDP tryout and maybe get some calls for some junior teams. And I wasn't receiving those. So I identified that reality quickly as a small goalie I needed to be that much better than everyone else around me. I couldn't just be average with my skill. I couldn't just be an average flexibility goaltender. I couldn't just be average with my reactionary skills. I had to be exceptional. So the quicker I faced that reality, it helped me identify all the extra work that I needed to do to achieve my goals. So that's one small example, and that can be extrapolated to any youth athlete right now. Like if you're a solid tier 1 player, you're not exceptional, you're not the worst player on the team, you're a solid player in the lineup. You have kind of average playing time, average point production in your gameplay. If you're a solid tier 1 player, you're more than likely not going to be the first one on the list of a scout calling, right? So you start to identify, what do I need to do to get myself into that next layer?
When you start out, early hockey's just fun. It's just joy. It almost seems like an altruistic thing where you've got everybody out to help you and nurture you and grow you and develop you. It's bigger than a business. It seems bigger than that. It seems like somehow you're part of this thing that here's a step and here's a step and here's a step. And you can fall under this illusion, not reality, that somehow if you show up and work hard, things work out. No, if you show up and work hard, things will probably go well. But if you want things to go amazing, you got to bust your ass and do extra stuff. We use examples all the time about people who do all the extra. Sidney Crosby, when he'd fail at whatever thing in a game, he'd go back the next day and set up those failures on the ice, do it 100 times to get better. So it's so easy to think that it should just progress, but it doesn't progress. Everybody progresses different. One of the hardest things you have when you get in that sort of 12 and 13-year-old time period, you've got guys who become like grown men, guys who are like 7 foot a million, I'm joking, but 6'2", 6'3", 180-pound 13-year-olds. Oh my gosh, what do you do when you're a guy who hasn't hit puberty yet and you feel like I'm never going to be anything? So the reality is that you have opportunity, but life looks like this. Nobody's chart doesn't look like this. It's a stock chart, and hopefully the trend line's up. Well, the only chance of having a trend line that's up is to make peace with that reality, like you said, of, hey, it's got to be everything you have for everything you want.
And one example of this that I've seen play out just with my role as a coach and mentor is I had an athlete and their parent about 4 years ago reach out to me 3-4 years ago and kind of use me as a resource to say, hey, so-and-so wants to play at Division I college hockey. What do they need to do in order to accomplish that goal? So I said, why don't you come over, we'll meet up on the patio, we'll kind of talk through where you are right now, and let's see where your goals are. So I printed out the schools of both Division I and Division III, and I said, okay, where do you aspire to get to as your end goal? And it was top Division I team after top Division I team. And I had to have the tough conversation and say, hey, you are kind of just making a team as a tier 1 goaltender, as a 16-year-old. Like, let's try to reevaluate our goals here and put something that's lofty but achievable. And then from that, let's identify what it takes to be successful or what it's going to take in order for you to get to that point. It's going to take much more hard work than you've ever done. It's going to take much more gym time and self-discipline time of executing things at a different pattern than what you're used to. All that free time you've had with your friends, there might not be as much. So we went through this process. We identified, okay, here's some lower end Division I schools. Here's some solid higher end Division III schools. And happy to say from there, over a 3-year period, this person worked their way up into more of a realistic goal, accomplishing, and is now excelling at a high-end Division III school. And who knows where that could transpire to. It might lead into future opportunities at higher levels. But we had to have that reality check and say, hey, you're not a dominant 16-year-old player. Who do you think that so-and-so is going to be recruiting? They're the top program in the country. They're going to be recruiting the top player, the top one that's executing at the highest levels.
No, it makes sense. And I love what you said, this lofty but achievable, because I think if you lose lofty, you're in trouble. If you all of a sudden pre-decide when you're 14 years old that I'll never have a chance at the NHL, I think that's a mistake. Because there are plenty of examples of people who all of a sudden just became obsessed that went to crazy levels. Look at Dylan Kelly had this path that wasn't the gifted path. It wasn't the, hey, the carpet's rolled out for you. And he winds up eventually being a D3 guy who winds up playing pro hockey in the AHL. It's amazing. You is a great example. You could have been completely defeated. Somebody could have easily said at 5'5" and with asthma, it's all over. There's no chance for you. They could have. And honestly, out of 1,000 kids who are 5'5" with asthma, they'd probably be right. But you became this badass. You became this guy that gave every single thing you had to be devoted to this, and you wind up playing pro. So I think that it's unrealistic to think that everybody's going to be pro, but it's also cruelty to cut kids' dreams, because in the end, who knows what's possible? I'll even use Kobe as an example. Kobe was a guy who sucked at age 10 and 11. He did not make one basket when he played basketball at 10 and 11. Imagine that, Kobe Bryant. But this guy, he just like, enough of this. I'm just going to outwork everybody. The Jeff Lerg thing, the Sidney Crosby thing. Every single person who's given everything, at least they know they went as far as they could go with no regrets. And Kobe winds up being the best 12-year-old in his state in 1 year like that. Now, certainly the guy's talented. Certainly he's not the story that everybody can be. But the lesson in all this is, the reality is, having big goals is a great thing, but being unrealistic as the speed to get there is a killer. And realizing that it's steps, it's progressions, it's busting your ass, it's having this up and down, this stock chart of up and down with the upward trend, that's reality. And it can be lofty at the same time. Both are important.
Yeah, one live example of that is probably the most famous hockey coach there is in the world right now, John Cooper. Many people know him as being this affable guy, always personable to people, successful at the NHL level. He's won 2 Stanley Cups at that level with Tampa Bay Lightning. But I had the unique history with Coop, is what he's known as. Back in 2003, he was my coach at Honey Baked, actually. He had a super interesting path. He was just coaching high school hockey in the Lansing area while practicing law. And then, for whatever reason, he started to have a little bit more interest in coaching. He grew up as a youth hockey player in Canada, never really made it past the junior level, and decided he wanted to engage in a higher level of coaching. So he went from this high school path to the Honey Baked program for 1 year where I was fortunate enough to have him. By the time, he was kind of just, of course, kind of a no-name. He was just a good guy, and decided from that point he wanted to pursue hockey as a new professional path while still having a law degree. So he coached for a year at the Honey Baked program, then went to the North American Hockey League, where they established a new franchise. Went to Texarkana, Texas, and they moved that over to St. Louis in the North American Hockey League. They won a championship there. Then got hired in the USHL as a head coach, won a championship there. Then all of a sudden, after a handful of years doing those jobs at the low-level youth and then into juniors, covered about a 7 or 8 year period, he got hired by the American Hockey League. Tampa Bay Lightning hired him to be the head coach at the American Hockey League level. And then they won a championship there. And then before you know it, the Tampa Bay coach was relieved of his duties. They went right to the head coach of the American League that's already won a championship. And now he's won 2 Stanley Cups as an NHL head coach. I knew him personally when he was on his path. I was actually an usher in his wedding back in the day, so I had a long-standing personal relationship with him. At some point, I remember seeing him after his 5th championship. It was his 2nd Stanley Cup, and he said, "Hey, now I got a ring for my thumb. I got all 5." So he's a funny guy, and an intriguing story on how someone can have a goal, accomplish it, then work to realign it to another layer. And he did that. He wasn't sitting at the high school in Lansing saying, "Hey, I'm going to coach in the NHL one day." He, of course, had some goals he wanted to accomplish, and then those just spiraled off from there.
It's such a great example, because he could have been the guy who had this unrealistic thing. Because really, when you're in high school, you can't know it's possible. He can dream of it, he can hope for it, he can have the lofty goal of, hey, someday that'd be amazing. But there's so many steps that go there. But if he thought that somehow he could fast track there's no fast tracking there. There is none. You got to bust your ass and go through the layers. And there might be some jumps you make that are surprise jumps. You get an opportunity. But he could have thought that and been so frustrated at each one of these things. He could have seen having to go become a coach in Honey Baked would be not fast enough. Or, working in the Knoll, Texarkana, not fast enough. He could be frustrated. Oh, AHL, not fast enough. But in the end, he took it. He took it because this is what it is. It's paying your damn dues. He sucked it up and realized this was all part of the process, and he wound up getting to this high level. But he also could have been so stuck in everything, either because he thought it should happen faster or because something got in his way. And he's a really respected guy. He's a really just kind of level guy. I remember one time I told you, back when I was a fan down in Tampa, my kids would go to these games and we'd stay after and get autographs and things. And we were at a traffic light with him. And my kids were like, "Coach Cooper, Cooper, Coach Cooper. And he actually rolled his window down and said, hey, you guys enjoy the game? He doesn't have to be like that. And I think it's a good example of a guy who just sees his whole life the same way. His whole life is just executing. His whole life is just being a human. His whole life is just being real. And you don't have to be nice to people. You can make it just purely a business. He doesn't do it. It's personal. So to him, I really think he's an awesome coach because he just saw everything. He sees the reality of all of this. It's awesome.
One of the lessons out of that, too, it's a reality in sports, is that many times you don't choose your path. Your path chooses you. You have to go where you're wanted, where you're going to be given an opportunity to excel. And there's many youth athletes now that they're trying to make a tier 1 team because they want to get that extra A in their status, when really they're going to go there and not play as much as they could at another high level tier 2 where that really wants them and it'll help them blossom as a player. I know for me, I had to go through that reality when I was in the pro ranks. I was in my mid-20s. I had accomplished some high success at the college level. We had talked about how I went through a series of injuries, 2 ACLs and a broken thumb, then a torn groin. I was at this point in my life where I was so successful at one point, and then I was in my mid to late 20s, and I was like, oh, geez, there's not a pro league around the world that wants me. So I went and I signed in the pro league in France. And the reason I signed there is because the head coach said, hey, we know of your past success. You'll come in. You'll get a great opportunity to play. We plan on giving you every opportunity to keep earning your playing time, get a chance to get healthy. It's not as difficult as a pro schedule as North America. So I went in there, and that was the best thing I ever did. Not only did I end up in a beautiful part of the world, met some great people, but I got a chance to play, got a chance to get healthy. And that's really what helped me probably buy another 6 to 7 professional hockey years and meet some more amazing people along the way. And I just went where I was wanted and was going to be given a great opportunity to showcase my skills. And then the goal-driven, high-passion Jeff Lerg took over, and we took that team from worst into a mid-level team, and it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, so it's such a universal story, though. I mean, if you think about kids coming up, and this can be kids, even up into teenage years, you're kind of taught there's this path. You're going to work on this. You're going to get better. Then you're going to be in Bantam. And then hopefully you're in tier 2. Then you're in tier 1. And then hopefully you play for some high level tier 1 team. And then from there, hopefully you get drafted at 15 and then drafted at 16. And hopefully you're in the USHL. But if not that, hopefully you're in the NOL. And if you're not there, then okay, maybe the BC, you kind of figure out where you go. But really there's this thought that if you're not in one of those areas, that it's over. If you're not drafted and having colleges talking to you, giving commitments by 16, that maybe something's wrong with you. But that's kind of the folklore. That's kind of the story that gets out because there's not time to talk about the real story. One of the reasons why we exist here, the real story is everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different way of getting to where they want to go. And sometimes you're going to hit your head one way and another thing makes sense. You were talking about before, because a family having aspirations of playing for Michigan and playing for Ohio State. And that would be the dream, right? 2 powerhouse teams all of a sudden. And for you, you decided to go another route because, frankly, there wasn't an opportunity there. But you could have felt terrible, just like before France, before you went and played. You're saying, sitting there with the injuries, you said just now, there's no pro team in the world that would want me. And you could have stayed in that. You could have vaped it out, drank it out, drugged it out, just check out. But you didn't. And you went from that shit-ass feeling to actually deciding to fight back. And you did. And you took this opportunity in France, and you made the most of it. And it changed your life. The whole trajectory of your life changed. So to me, I think it's so exciting that there's so much possibility if you just make peace with the crap. Because in the end, except for things like love, caring, connection, and spirit, everything else, every other feeling we have is because we think something. And if we think no other pro team in the country is going to go after me, no other pro team in the world will go after me, then that's our reality. But if we think, okay, hey, I feel like crap right now, and yeah, I kind of think nobody's ever going to want me, but if I get up and I fight for what I want, at least, damn it, I'm not going to have any regrets. And sometimes there's success and great success, and all this stuff accumulates. I can think of these failures I had in my life. There's so many times I felt like a piece of crap. I told you guys before, growing up, I thought I was a piece of crap. I could have stayed in that, but the coach changed my life in high school. And there's plenty of failures that happened after that. In my senior year, I told you I was this guy who's ranked number 1 at the highest division in Florida. I had college scholarships. I had things that were lined up. They all evaporated in one time. One time where I lost myself the last half mile. And I could have let that be it. But the school that still wanted me and gave me a scholarship, I went there, and great things happened. But they wouldn't have happened if I had given up. They'll never happen for anybody if you give up. And I think one of the biggest lessons here is that in the end, lick your wounds, feel bad, say terrible things, say I'm awful, I'm a piece of crap, like everybody does. But then look at the reality. You're not. You're just in a bucket of crap right now. What are you going to do next? What are you going to choose next? What are you going to go after? Because your reality is your reality. What you think is the truth. And if you think you can or you think you can't, like my old coach said, you're probably right. Create a reality that moves toward the things you give a crap about. It's the only way to have something that feels like a life.
And you said something key there, fight for something that you want. And I mentioned it earlier. You have to really dig down deep and identify, do I want this? Do I want to put all the time and energy and passion and sacrifice in to go chase this goal that I may or may not achieve? And everyone's going to complete their playing days at some point or another. So for some people, this could happen as a teenager. You don't want to sacrifice all your time away from your high school buddies. Others that are fortunate to play long enough, they might go through a whole college career and then have to make that decision. Do I really want to keep doing this and spend all my time pursuing it, or do I want to move on? I know a close friend of mine, Ryan Larkin, exceptional goaltender as a youth into juniors, into college. He is the all-time saves leader at Miami of Ohio, Division I college hockey. So no goalie has gone through the program and made more saves than him. So he played for 4 years, had an exceptional career. He, of course, could have pursued the professional path. He, of course, could have kept going and said, hey, I want to try it out in the minors and see where I can go. Like, he was good enough. There's goalies that weren't as good as him that have pursued a professional path. But he made that choice and said, hey, I don't even want to play a minute. I don't want to play anymore. Like, it was a great path. He didn't love it as much as he once did. It became more like a job as opposed to fun. And he said, I want to pursue something else. And he's okay with me sharing this because that's the reality. He was successful, but he made that choice and he faced reality. I don't want to do this anymore.
You open up this great subject, and this is so good for parents. It's so good for kids to hear this. You're going to change in what you want and care about over your whole life. But there's no bigger changes in what you want and care about than there is from childhood to about age 25. We talked before about your brain, the part that assesses risk and danger, develops till you're 25. It's one of the reasons why you can't rent a car till you're 25. But since you're going to change so much over that period of time, just because you wanted something at age 7 or age 10 or age 12 or age 16, if you change for some reason, that's fine. But there's this feeling, and I hear this all the time. I've had people in tears on the phone with me saying, God, if I don't do this, then what was it all for? What was it all for? Because you gave so much of your childhood, you sacrificed so much of this. If I don't get this, then it was all for nothing. If I don't do this, then I'm disappointing my parents. I'm going to look like a chump to my friends. I went to go do this, and it didn't work out. It's a horrible feeling, and you can think in your head that the reality is that somehow you lose your parents, you lose the love of your friends, you lose the connection, you look like an idiot. But the reality is you're a human being with a finite amount of time, man. You get 74 years as a male in the United States, 77 years as a female. How are you going to spend your time? And if you want to sit here and spend your life pleasing others out of the fear of losing them, it's a sucker bet. But most of us live in that reality, and I understand. We've got it built into us. But the truth is, man, you got to be able to go for the things you give a crap about. And if something happens where you want to take your ball and go home, take your damn ball and go home at some point. Think about it for at least a few weeks to make sure that this thing you've done for 7, 8, 10 years, you no longer want it. But if you have peace in your heart about it, it's the right decision. It is. And if you want to change your life and you've been casual and all of a sudden you want to dive in, everything you have, despite the fact that you think people think you're nuts, at some point, you got to decide what's your voice, what's that thing in the middle of your chest that makes you feel alive, and you got to go for that. And sometimes that means all in, and sometimes that means walking away. But I love the idea that we frame our realities. And if you think you're a piece of crap, you're going to operate like that. And if you realize that sometimes you're going to feel like a piece of crap, but you still have another at-bat, you still got another choice, you still have another step you can take, that's where the power is in life. That's where the life is. Life is not in things working perfectly. Life is in, oh my gosh, I banged my head. This sucks. This is awful. What am I going to do? And you go there and you become better, you become stronger, and you find these pathways you'd never exist. I never would think I'd be working with hockey players when I was 18 years old. But what I do perfectly fits into this. All this crazy 75 to 90 mile a week, puking your guts up on a Saturday morning, running till you fall apart from heat exhaustion, completely lines up with this sport that takes a marathon and jams it down into one shift. It's amazing. So yes, truly, decide what you want. Don't be stuck in the false reality that you lose everything if somehow you change path.
Yeah, and as we summarize our episode here, really, to all the athletes, the only true reality in sport is there's no instant gratification. You're never going to have something happen just the way you want it to happen every single time. You have to readjust your goals, accomplish lofty goals, readjust them, realign them, and then expect the unexpected. Always be prepared to learn more and dig in harder than you ever thought you'd have to dig in. So that'll conclude our episode today. As a reminder, follow us at Dialed and Driven on social, Dialed and Driven at Gmail, and reach out to us for any mental performance training and goalie training, and keep staying dialed on your goals.
Jeff Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive!
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.